Hey team, welcome to another Bullpen Bulletin with Coach Hart and Building Better Baseball. This is one of the most important videos I have ever made, and it's most likely the most important video that you will ever watch as a coach or a player. It's not going to be the most popular, but it is one of the most important topics or videos that you will ever see. It's how to interact with umpires with respect, because there is an umpire shortage in the game of baseball, and it is the way that we treat them. That is a big contributing factor of the umpire situation. And it's just the way that coaches and players approach umpires and they treat them. And we need to change that culture. And it starts with this video, okay? So this is all about how to interact with umpires with respect. And again, I'm Coach Hart. This is Building Better Baseball, the best place for baseball education. So let's get into this umpire video. All right. So first, some things to remember about umpires. We would not have baseball without umpires, and it's as simple as that. They are everything to the game. Like if there were no umpires, it would be a scrimmage, right? There would be no games. Their umpires and baseball are synonymous, right? We need umpires in order to play this game. And just remember that they are not robots who make 100% of the correct calls. And I feel like the players have this kind of idea that they are supposed to make all of the correct calls and there's going to be absolutely no mistakes. We have to remember that there will be mistakes and they are not robots. They're not robots out there with no feelings or just they're not human and they're going to make 100% of correct calls. That's not what umpires are, right? So they're human beings with lives outside of baseball, just like you and I, and we should treat them as such. So if they make an incorrect call and you go up and you yelling in their face and you're disagreeing or whatever, like, would you want someone to do that to you if you were just doing your job, right? So we have to remember, we have to treat them like humans. And I feel like sometimes players and even coaches, they treat them almost like robots and that they got the wrong call and that's not supposed to happen. It is part of the game and it's the human error of the game, and that's what makes baseball great. All right, so that's really, really important to remember because I feel like that's forgotten a lot when we are in the heat of the game, right? They will make mistakes. It is inevitable. They will make mistakes. They are not perfect. And some of them are just younger adults working for some extra cash, or others are veterans who just absolutely love what they do. They love the game of baseball and they love umpiring, especially youth baseball. They love watching the kids get out there and play baseball and just umpiring the game that they love. All right. And we should not treat them as, like I said, robots who are going to make 100% of the correct calls. And when they make a bad call, we berate them, right? That is almost ruining their love for the game. And that's not fair, right? They love the game just as much as you love the game, and we need to treat them as such. And just remember, like I said, some of them are just younger adults trying to make some extra cash. They used to play baseball, now they have this summer job of umpiring just to make some extra cash. So they're not MLB level umpires who are going to make all the right calls, all right? So I feel like that gets lost a lot when you're in the heat of a game and you see a play go one way and the umpire calls it a different way. We just have to remember that they're human, they will make mistakes, they're not robots. And these are all things to remember when we're talking about umpires. They are just like you and I. They love baseball and they're just trying to help out the game of baseball. All right. So the first tip that I have for interacting with umpires is introduce yourself. All right. So this is one thing that I had my players and I still have my players, and especially my son is 2 years old now. I will have him do this every single game he plays. All right. When you step onto the field on defense, walk up to the field umpire, shake his or her hand, and introduce yourself. Say, hey, sir, my name is Coach Hart. What is your name? You know what I mean? Just introduce yourself. Get that game off to a good start with the umpire. Acknowledge them that they're there and don't just leave them out to dry and like act like they're not there, right? And act like they're just there to call the game because they're not. They're human beings. Introduce yourself. Have a conversation, right? Wish them a good game, thank them for being there, or even like talk about the weather. Just make some sort of connection in the first inning. All right. Can you imagine if an entire team did this every single game? If the entire team in the first inning went up to the field umpire and shook his hand and said, hey, my name is this. What's your name? Isn't this weather great? I can't wait to play this game. Thank you for being here. All right. If every single player did that, it would be an amazing atmosphere, an amazing game, right? And same thing applies for the plate umpire. So when you go up to the bat, before you step in for your first at bat, shake his hand, say, "Hey, thank you for being here. What's your name? My name is this. I can't wait to play this. It's a beautiful day out here. Beautiful day for some baseball. Thank you for being here." All right, just make some sort of connection with the umpire, and just that shows them that you know that they are human, right? It's just a human connection, a basic human connection that we need to make with the umpires, so there's not this separation or this energy that is not good for the atmosphere of the game. All right, so let's set that good positive atmosphere between you and the umpires, and just everybody just has fun playing the game of baseball. All right. And this will set a positive atmosphere for the rest of the game. I mean, like I said, if can you imagine if both teams, every player and every coach went up to the umpires in the first inning and introduced themselves and created that connection, it would be an amazing game. All right. And this is kind of what I'm talking about with like a culture shift, right? If we start this practice at the youngest level of 6U, 7U, 8U, where the kids are taught to introduce themselves to the umpire and create that connection, and they carry that with them through like all the way through youth baseball and high school and even college if they play, it'll just create that culture shift of treating umpires with respect and treating them like human beings instead of robots that are just there to call the game. All right. So one thing is ask questions, not complaints. All right. And this is one really, really big tip that I have that goes a long way with whenever there's a disagreement with a call. And inevitably, there will be a call of some sort that you disagree with. It's just inevitable in baseball, right? Where you saw it one way and the umpire saw it a different way. All right. It happens all the time, right? You see the play one way, the umpire calls it a different way, and you're confused, right? Unfortunately, most players and coaches have a first instinct to complain or argue with the umpire. And it's so ingrained in the baseball culture of these pictures right here, right? This first picture where the catcher's getting in the umpire's face and they're arguing back and forth, or this catcher's arguing with the umpire probably about a strike call, right? It was so ingrained that when I was looking for pictures to kind of distinguish between the two, I own like 90 to 95% of the pictures I was looking at were of the player or the coach arguing with the umpire, right? I could barely find any sort of pictures with umpires and players or umpires and coaches where they were talking or even smiling. It's just so ingrained in the baseball culture, and we have to change that. We have to change the way we interact with umpires, because this is leading to that umpire shortage and this umpire situation that we have in especially youth baseball, but overall umpires, they don't want to umpire baseball because people just argue with them all the time over the different calls, right? So what we do is, and I ask like, how has that treated you so far? So probably not so good, right? Whenever you disagree with a call, the best thing to do is to ask the umpire what he saw and then explain what you saw. So this is a very respectful way of saying, "Hey, I disagree with your call, but what did you see? What did you see on that call?" All right. And I guarantee you 80 to 90% of umpires will tell you what they saw. So this is my approach whenever I disagree with a call. I kind of walk out and say, hey, Blue, what did you see on that call? Or obviously I know his name. Let's say his name is Ron, right? Hey, Ron, what did you see on that call? And then he will explain his side of what he saw. And then I can explain my side of what I saw, and it's like, oh, well, actually, I actually saw that a little differently. I saw it this way, blah, 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 blah. And it's a very respectful way of saying, I disagree with you, but I respect you as an umpire and as a human being. So let's have a talk about this. Let's have a conversation about what you saw versus what I saw. All right. And if this is every interaction with every single call that we have, the baseball game will go so much smoother. All right. And this is the only kind of picture I saw of a conversation between coaches and umpires. But even though this is probably like a pregame meeting where you meet at home plate, this is like the only interaction that I found where the picture was, because all of them were of the people arguing with the umpire. That is just a culture that we need to change, right? So This is the most respectful way to disagree with the call, right? Because, like I said, it's inevitable, but there is a way to go about expressing your disagreement with the call through asking questions, not complaining about the calls. And coaches, it starts with you. It starts with you on how you interact. Be the example for your young players on how to properly interact with umpires because I think it is absolutely unacceptable when a player argues with an umpire or a player complains to an umpire directly, or even if they disagree with the call, they throw their helmet and do all of these antics and everything like that. I think that's completely unacceptable, and that does not happen on my teams. That does not happen on my teams, and especially, like I said, my son is 2 years old. He will not be doing that, or he won't be playing, right? The umpires deserve respect no matter how bad the call was because it's going to happen, right? But as a human being, they deserve respect. And right now, judging on the umpire shortage, they're not getting it. And it starts with the youth baseball level. All right. So the last thing is say thank you. When the game is finished up, go up to each umpire, shake their hand, and say thank you for being here. Go up to them, say thank you, Blue. Thank you, Blue, for being here because we know that if you weren't here, we wouldn't have a game. We wouldn't be able to play. It would just be a scrimmage, right? So thank them every single game. The field umpire, the home plate umpire, however many umpires you have, thank them. All right. It doesn't matter if you win or lose, how good or bad the calls were, whether you like the umpires or not, thank them. It does not matter. Because really, at the end of the day, especially youth baseball, because these kids are not getting paid millions of dollars, it's just a game, right? It's just a game no matter how bad it went or how good it went. Thank the umpires for being there. Because as I said in the beginning, can you imagine if every single team in the beginning of the game went up, introduced themselves during the game, asked questions instead of complained, and at the end of the game, no matter what, said thank you? That is a complete culture shift of how we treat umpires, and more umpires will be willing to umpire our games. And it's just a growth mindset where a rising tide lifts all ships, right? So remember, without them, there is no game, as I said. And respecting umpires and fostering positive game atmosphere starts with us, the youth baseball level. Let's inspire change. And as I said, especially as a parent, as a coach, as a parent, as the adults in the room, we set the example for our young players on how to properly interact with umpires. They deserve our respect no matter how good or bad they are. We know that we set the example for the young players on how to properly interact with the umpires. And it's such an important topic, and it's so important to have more umpires be willing to umpire games. We don't want the umpires to only be doing it for a paycheck or to come to the field and not want to be there, right? Can you imagine if you go to your work every single day and somebody's in your face arguing with you or complaining to you? Nobody wants that, right? So let's create this culture shift. Let's inspire change. Let's be the example of what we want to see as the adults and show our young players how to properly interact with umpires, because it starts with us at the youth level. Because once we teach them at the youth level, they will carry those actions through as long as they play, and it'll just create a huge culture shift on the way we treat umpires. All right, so as I said, this is probably not going to be my most popular video, but I believe it is the most important video, coaches, parents, you will ever watch, and you will show your players, because it's so important to treat umpires with respect. They are not robots, which some kids, I feel like they believe that they are. They're just out there to call the game, and they're not even human beings or whatever. But I just really, really believe in this video of creating that culture shift and treating umpires with respect, so that it just, like I said, rising tide lifts all ships. Let's get this message out to anybody and everybody who needs to hear it, because umpires, there's a shortage out there, and it's for good reason, right? Because people just argue and complain all the time with the umpires when they're just doing their job and they're out there to have some fun and make some cash. And don't forget to grab your free starter pack, your free coaching starter pack, or your free parent starting pack down in the description below. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Send this out, share it, show your players, show your parents, everything. We need to treat umpires with respect. I'm Coach Hart. This is Building Better Baseball, the best place for baseball education. I'll see you in another video real soon.